Right? Yeah. And the reason for that is simple. Those are the three main areas of your life. Now, I want to tell you something else. If I were to ask you, what are your three biggest problems in life? Your three goals are the solutions to your three problems. If you achieved the three goals, you'd solve your three biggest problems. One last point is, remember we said that successful people think about the future and where they're going? When you write down those three goals, that tells you your future. Because both consciously and unconsciously, each day you are moving toward achieving those goals. Even if you're not even thinking about it, you're still working toward achieving those goals, because those are your subconscious goals. You are moving toward them, and they are moving toward you. Well, what I want you to do, and here's the exercise, is for the next 24 hours, I want you to think about those three goals all the time. I want you to think about the three goals, and I only want you to ask one question. And the question is, how? Yes, yes, it's how. You are good students. All right. Now, we have interviewed the top 10%, and as I said, you're in the top 10%. We've interviewed the top 10% extensively and asked them, what do you think about most of the time? And we find that the top 10% of people have a special way or several special ways of thinking most of the time. These are all learnable ways of thinking. You can learn to think like the top people. And when you think like the top people, you will get the same results as the top people. It's a law that says that your outer world will always be a mirror or a reflection of your inner world. So therefore, your outer world today is a reflection of what you're thinking about today most of the time. If you change what you're thinking, if you reprogram, then your outer world will change so it's consistent with your inner program. It's sort of like projecting on a screen. Imagine that your eyes are projection lenses, the screen is your reality or your world, and your thoughts are what are projected through your eyes onto the screen. You always project yourself onto the screen of your life. Wherever you look, you see yourself. Wherever you look, there is yourself reflected back. So, how do top people think most of the time? They have what we call orientations. Now, an orientation is a general way of thinking. And the first orientation is what we call future orientation. That means that top people think about the future most of the time. Top people think about where they're going most of the time. But top people have a special way of thinking about the future. And the special way is this, is they imagine a perfect future for themselves. They imagine a happy future. They imagine an ideal future for themselves. So here's an exercise. Imagine that you have a magic wand and that you could wave this magic wand over the future. And you could pick a date 5 years from now, and 5 years from now your life will be perfect in every way. If your life was perfect in every way, like a magic wand, what would it look like? What would you be doing in 5 years if your life was perfect? How much money would you have if your life was perfect? What kind of a family or marriage would you have if your life was perfect? What kind of a home would you live in? What kind of a car would you drive? How much money would you have in the bank? How much money would you be earning? Who would you be with in 5 years? Who would you no longer be with in 5 years? If your life was perfect in every way, what would it look like? Now, the greater clarity you have with regard to the answer to this question, the faster you move toward it, the faster it moves toward you. The greater clarity you have, the easier it is to make decisions. The greater clarity you have of your future vision for your life, the easier it is for you to learn lessons. Now, I flew here from Los Angeles yesterday morning. I left Los Angeles, and when the plane left and got into the air, the pilot came over and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be arriving in Seoul in 12 hours and 37 minutes. 12 hours and 37 minutes. And then the plane started. Now, if you know anything about airplanes, you know that airplane was off course 99% of the time. 99% of the time, the airplane was off course. All airplanes are off course 99% of the time. So, the pilots are continually bringing the plane back on course. They have winds that move the plane. They have turbulence and clouds. They go up and down. So the plane is off course 99% of the time. But can you guess when the plane arrived in Seoul, how long the flight took? 12 hours and 37 minutes. And the plane landed in the Seoul airport exactly to the minute that they predicted in Los Angeles when the plane took off, even though it was off course most of the time. When you have a clear vision for your future and you know what your perfect future will look like, you will be off course most of the time. You'll be making mistakes, and you'll be trying more things, and you'll be learning lessons, and you'll have temporary setbacks, and you'll have difficulties, and you'll be learning from every experience, and you'll be getting off course and on course and off course and on course. And just at the right time, you will achieve your goal. You will arrive at the airport of your goal exactly the way you saw it, as long as you're clear about your destination. Imagine if I took off in a Korean airliner plane, and the pilot came on and said, "Thank you for flying with Korean Air. We don't know where we're going, so we're going to fly around for a while and see if we find anything nice." That's how most people live their lives. They're flying a plane, your mind, that can take you across the world with great accuracy, but because they don't have a destination, they just go around in circles. How many times have you met someone and then met them again 5 years later and their life is still the same? They still have the same problems. They still have no money. They still have problems at work. 5 years later, nothing has changed. They're going around in circles. Now, an airplane goes around in circles until what happens? It runs out of fuel. And then it crashes. Do you know that airplanes do not coast? Jets have to be moving at about 250 kilometers an hour in order to land. If they slow below 250 kilometers, they fall like a stone out of the air, and they go splat. If ever you take a flight and they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, the life jackets are under the seat. In case of an emergency water landing, proceed to the emergency exit door and put on your life jacket, blow it up, like this." Have you seen those? It never happens. Those warnings were for 50 or 100 years ago when they had little planes, when they had propeller planes. And there was a chance, a very small chance, that one of these planes would land on water. Today, jets don't land on water. Jets fall out of the sky like a bottle falling from the top of a hotel onto a concrete parking lot. And they go splat. Anyway, most people fly around in circles until they run out of gas or they run out of life. And then they just crash. And they never accomplish anything. But when you have a clear destination with the same intelligence as a person who is a genius, with the same intelligence, you can fly straight and clear and true like an arrow to your target. So, first of all, have a future orientation and just imagine your perfect future. And don't worry about people who say it's not possible, you're too young, you're too old. Don't listen to negative people. What you say is, if someone else can do it, I can do it as well. And then you look around and you find someone who's done it and you go and ask them for their advice. And successful people will always give you advice. They will always tell you what to do. And if you just do what other successful people do, you soon get the same results that other successful people get. By the way, here's a quick point. Rich DeVos of Amway also told me this. He said, if you're not going to commit for 5 years to this business, he said, don't get into it at all. He said, it takes 5 years to master any new business. And this is based on years of research. If you decide to become a salesperson, it will take you 5 years to master it. If you decide to become a lawyer, it will take you 5 years after you graduate before you will begin to become successful. If you decide to become a doctor, after all your training, it will still take 5 more years before you are successful. So therefore, if you're not willing to commit 5 years, don't start at all. Right. Well, so develop future orientation and think about the future most of the time. If someone has a problem, you say, okay, what's the solution? And think about the future. When someone makes a mistake, you say, okay, you've made a mistake. Next time, in the future, why don't we do it this way? Keep thinking about the future, and when you're thinking about the future, your dimmer switch is on full, and you're happy, and you're more positive, and you have more energy, you're more creative. You're the best person that you can be. Almost all of our problems in life come from people who are talking about the past. They're worrying about the past. They're angry about the past. They're critical about the past. They keep talking about the past. Don't be like that. Think about the future. Now, the second quality of top people is top people are goal-oriented. Top people are goal-oriented in that they think about their goals most of the time. They think about their goals and how to achieve them most of the time. So let me give you a simple 7-step formula for setting and achieving goals. There are many more elaborate or bigger formulas, but I will give you a 7-step formula that you can write down on one of the back pages of your booklet. Step number 1 is to decide exactly what you want. Most people